Welcome to your Elevate Life Executive Video Think Letter, where high-performing leaders come to amputate what's holding them back and elevate to their next breakthrough. I'm John Register, keynote speaker on change management, resilience, and building a champion's mindset. If you're planning your next leadership event or conference, I'd be honored to be introduced to your event planning committee, your team, or your conference organizers. Your endorsements mean everything. This executive experience is specifically for you if you are leading teams through high-stakes transitions, you're navigating rapid industry change and need strategies that actually work. You're committed to elevating yourself and those that you serve into the next level of leadership. It's not for you if you are content on staying where you are. It's not for you if you believe that change is something that you can wait out rather than lead through. And it's definitely not for you if you are unwilling to amputate old mindsets, old habits, or old networks that are keeping you stuck. And if any of that made you feel a little uncomfortable, that's good. It means you're exactly where you need to be. So in today's Elevate Life experience, we'll unpack why your inner circle determines your ceiling, how invisible stressors can quietly destroy your change efforts, and why emotions are real, but they're not always right when leading in volatile environments. Each insight comes directly from my conversation with my great friend, Tony Chatman, one of the brightest leadership minds in the business. So make sure that you watch the full interview on my YouTube channel. Just search for John Register Live. You don't want to miss the full depth of this powerful conversation that we had down in Florida. So let's dive in. Part 1. Get off my back. Have you ever felt like the moment you start growing, people closest to you start pulling back? You're not imagining it. And today we're going to talk about why that happens and what you must do about it if you're serious about elevating. So let's listen in to Tony Chatman.
Listen, our first question, the first question I always have with my guests is, what did you have to amputate in order to elevate your success?
I think the clear thing for me is I had to amputate certain relationships. What I've learned is, at least for me, often my circles determine my success. And so for me to elevate to another level, I have to first elevate my relationships. And it's really strange what happens, because it starts off and you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, hey, I've got people around me, I can get advice from them. But what happens is, when you ask for advice or when you share with them a goal that's beyond what they're used to, their reflexive nature is to pull you back, right? And so I would say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And they go, are you sure you should do that? That's not a great idea. But then you share it with people in a higher elevation and they're like, well, why aren't you already doing that?
Right, yeah.
Let me help you with that. It's just a different thing. And so the minute I changed my relationships, I changed my success.
This moment that Tony shared is a perfect illustration of the reckoning, the first phase in my resilience action model. It's the point where you recognize if you want to elevate, something has to be amputated. Not everyone and not everything can go with you. For me, my reckoning came after my injury. I had to amputate more than just a physical limb. I had to amputate my attachment to who I was in order to embrace who I was becoming. The leadership insight that Tony shares for us is key. Tony said it so well. When I changed my comfort zone, I disrupted theirs, and they wanted to pull me back. It's not always malicious. Sometimes the people who love us the most, the people who are simply mostly closest to us, our growth threatens their comfort. For executives navigating high stakes, this is critical. You're not just managing strategies, you're managing emotional ecosystems. And if you stay tied to old circles that can't see your new vision, they'll slow your momentum even without even meaning to. The phenomenon of people pulling back when an individual starts growing is often due to fear of change or threatened ego, making the other person feel a little bit inferior. In leadership, this can manifest as lack of support from peers or resistance to new ideas from team members. To elevate, it's crucial to maintain the boundaries, build stronger networks, and prioritize personal growth. Here's a more detailed look. Why people pull back: fear of change. When someone grows, their values, goals, and perspectives might change, which can be unsettling for those around them who preferred the status quo. Threatened ego. If the individual's growth makes others feel inferior or inadequate, they may unconsciously resist or pull them back to the familiar place. Lack of emotional connection. If the relationship was primarily based on shared circumstances or interest rather than genuine emotional connection, growth can create a void or distance. Examples of leadership. Lack of support from peers. A new leader with innovative ideas might encounter resistance from peers who fear their own authority or status being challenged. Resistance to new ideas. Team members might resist new strategies or approaches that require them to adapt their ways of working, even if they are more effective. Difficulty delegating. A leader might struggle to delegate tasks or trust others due to fear of losing control or being perceived as weak. So here's what to do about it. Set boundaries. It's essential to establish healthy boundaries with people who are not supportive of your growth. Build strong networks. Surround yourself with people who encourage and support your personal and professional development. Prioritize personal growth. Focus on your own personal journey and remember that it's about elevating yourself, not necessarily changing others. So I recently worked with a group of senior leaders during a corporate retreat. Leaders who were navigating major industry shifts. And when I introduced the idea of amputating to elevate, you could feel the hesitation in the room. You could almost hear the silent fears. What will I lose? What if I outgrow my team? What if letting go feels like betrayal? But something incredible happened. Once they saw that amputating wasn't about abandonment, it was about alignment, they leaned in. They began to name old systems, outdated partnerships, and even personal habits that were no longer serving at the highest level of their leadership. And the shift was immediate. When you have the courage to amputate what no longer fits you, you create a space to elevate what's truly possible. So here's your call to action. If you know you're carrying a relationship or voices that aren't ready for where you're going, this is your reckoning moment. Join me inside the Elevate Life Executive Strategy Session, where we will work together to amputate what's holding you back and build the structures that pull you forward. Your next level is waiting, but it won't wait forever. Remember, your elevation will expose their comfort zone. Keep moving anyway. Part 2. On paper, the change looks simple. A new system, a new boss, a new workflow. But beneath that surface, it's never just one change, is it? Today, we're diving into the real reason change initiates fail and why the stress leaders don't see is the stress that breaks the entire system. So let's check out the YouTube video from Tony Chatman.
Freedom, faith, because there are two stories that we tell ourselves that both have not happened yet.
Yeah. I think we're not aware that we tell ourselves stories, though. Right? That's a friend of mine said something really interesting to me recently. He said, "This happened, and the story I told myself."
Oh,
was.
right.
And it was so insightful because when you start to realize there's a difference between the reality of what happened and our perception of reality, it's a totally different game, right? So I think the journey starts with that awareness of where are you really? What has really happened? For me, now, I'm different because I come from an engineering background, right? So I think so I'll go, okay, here are the potential things that are gonna happen. Now, what's the most extreme? What's the least extreme? What's the most likely? Okay, even though in my brain, because I've had like a lot of stressors recently, family health, some issues with my son, business stuff. I mean, it's been like this cauldron, but then I have to step back for a moment and say, okay, all this is happening. First, where are you really? Because I know that during these times of stress, my emotions are a horrible barometer for morality. I mean, for reality, right? My emotions they're real because they feel real. They're just not right. They're not what's going on. So when I can step back from that, I go, okay. I feel all of this, but that's an emotion, okay? And that emotion is I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I do want to share something with you.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely.
I had a friend recently, and this has kind of helped me even see more clearly with the emotions. Have someone I'm really close to get on a medication recently, and those medications started to give them thoughts of harming themselves, okay? Which is a very common side effect for certain things. But nothing in their life had changed. It was just the medication changed their emotions. And it helped me to go, okay, often we have these emotions and we think these emotions, they're because of all these other things. Sometimes they're just random. So when you can step back and you depower the emotion, that gives you so much more power.
When I teach executives about elevating life through oxygen in the atmosphere, I remind them it's not enough just to survive the chaos. You have to create enough oxygen, enough breathable emotional space for your teams to rise through it. When we fail to acknowledge hidden stressors, we suffocate creativity, we suffocate courage and commitment without even realizing. Leaders don't just drive results, they regulate the atmosphere. Leadership insight from Tony is he said that you think it's one change, but it's the straw that really breaks the camel's back. Change isn't isolated, it's cumulative. And without emotional oxygen, even small changes can trigger massive resistance or even collapse. If you're leading through transition, remember you're not managing one change, you're managing the emotional weight of every change your people have encountered for months, for years. When leaders ignore that unseen load, they lose good people, derail great strategies, and destroy hard-won trust. At a Fortune 500 Leadership Summit I spoke at, a senior VP pulled me aside after my keynote. He said, "We thought we had a turnover problem, but after your session, I realized we have a grief problem." In the aftermath of rapid restructuring, their teams weren't resisting strategy. They were grieving the loss of identity. They were grieving the loss of stability and certainty. Once they acknowledged that and created breathing room, the organization rebounded faster than anyone predicted. So if you're ready to not just lead through change, but through the atmosphere of change, join me inside the Elevate Life Executive Strategy Session. We will work together to identify where your teams need more oxygen and you can supply it without losing momentum. Remember, it's never just one change. It's the environment that you create that determines who thrives and who survives. Number 3, your emotions are real, but, and this is a big but, they're not always right. Today, we're going to talk about how high-performing leaders can feel their emotions without following them, and why one small action of change can change everything. Here's a clip back to Tony Chatman, "Depower the emotion, make it serve you, not the other way around."
Okay, anyway, I remember I got into financial services with my best friend, and we were at a conference in Chicago, and we were having a meeting with these guys, and this meeting would result in us training traders for a large hedge fund, okay? And we were having the conversation. There was a person in the room who I still don't know why they're in that room, okay? And during the conversation, he goes, "Yeah, but what about, 9/11? And we were like, "I don't know what that's doing," but we kept going. What about, and kept bringing up 9/11. And after the third time, the hedge fund manager looked and said, it wasn't a recession for everyone. And now that I know more about trading, I get it. A lot of people took losses, but some people took huge gains.
Huge gains, right.
Huge. In the middle of chaos and loss is opportunity. And the key is to overcome your emotions quickly so you can have the clarity to find the opportunity. There's a blue ocean out there that you could be the first one to jump in and have all of that. And so I think for me, that's what we've immediately jumped into. And in our conversation, I think we have some similarities there. We're going different directions in it, but we've said, okay, well, everybody's emotional and trying to figure this out. And listen, politics are important. I'm not saying they're not. All this other stuff is important, but of the things you can actually control.
Right, yeah.
The things you can control, hey, it was really more important for me to go, okay, where's my opportunity?
Inside my new normal mindset framework, we talk about this a lot. After disruption, emotions run hot. Grief, anger, fear, doubt. They all show up. They're all loud. But the new normal isn't about erasing those emotions. It's about choosing which ones you empower and which ones you simply acknowledge and then move past. In a new normal, emotions don't lead the way. Commitment to the next vision does. Tony put it powerfully. Depower the emotion, make it serve you, not the other way around. You can't lead others if you're constantly being led by your own reactions. Real leadership requires emotional agility, feeling everything but choosing what drives your next move. Executives operating in volatile times have to separate temporary feelings from permanent decisions, because when you make emotional decisions in crisis, you don't just risk your reputation, you risk your organization's future. High-stakes leadership demands a higher level of emotional self-command. After speaking at a healthcare leadership summit, I had an executive, a CEO, share something pretty vulnerable with me. He said, "I almost derailed a merger because I let fear drive my decision-making." Now, he wasn't responding to the deal's facts. He was responding to the ghost of a past failure. And once he realized it and separated the old fear from the current opportunity, he regained clarity and closed a transformational partnerships. Sometimes the biggest growth isn't the new idea. It's a new emotional discipline. If you're ready to build that kind of emotional strength where your emotions serve your mission, not sabotage it, join me inside the Elevate Life Executive Strategy session, because mastering your next level starts inside. Remember, your emotions are loud. Your vision is quiet. Choose carefully which one you follow. Thank you for being part of today's Elevate Life Executive Video Think Letter. You're not here by accident. You're here because leadership in today's world demands a higher level of self-awareness, action, and resilience. I'm John Register, keynote speaker specializing in change management, resilience, and developing the mindset of a champion. If you're planning a major leadership event or know somebody responsible for hiring keynote speakers, I'd sincerely appreciate an introduction to your conference or event planning team. Your recommendation opens doors, and together we can elevate even more lives. But before you go, be sure to watch the full conversation with Tony Chatman over at John Register Live on YouTube. It's packed with strategies that you can't afford to miss. And if you're ready to implement what we talked about today, put it to use, not just know it, but live it, then join me inside the Elevate Life Executive Premium Experience. Get on a monthly coaching call. Get into the WhatsApp group for weekly chats. Inside, we go beyond inspiration. We give you the blueprint for action, real frameworks, real strategies, real elevation. This is your season. Amputate your limitations and elevate your expectations to inspire your world. Until next time, keep elevating. Go forth, inspire your world. Bye for now.